leaves us just one more lesson today and then one more Sunday in this series of lessons on 1 Peter. What an amazing letter. What an amazing, for us, we call it a book. Peter would have called it a letter. We are now all the way up to chapter 5, and we'll be reading the first 4 verses. I think there's kind of a relatively clear break between verse 4 and verse 5. I had originally stuck verse 5 in with this paragraph, but I'm going to amend that, and I'm going to put the break in between 4 and 5. So we're going to read verses 1 through 4, and then next week we'll begin with verse 5. So, and that's a very important so. Don't overlook that little so. Perhaps your translation says therefore, or some other equal transition there. So, I exhort the elders among you, as a fellow elder and witness of the sufferings of Christ, as well as a partaker in the glory that is going to be revealed. Shepherd the flock of God that is among you, exercising oversight, not under compulsion, but willingly, as God would have you. Not for shameful gain, but eagerly, not domineering over those in your charge, but being examples to the flock. And when the chief shepherd appears, you will receive the unfading crown of glory. So many things to talk about, so little time. Is there in any of your other translations, is there a different word there? Verse 1, is there a likewise or a therefore or a so? Therefore? Okay. What is the therefore? What has he just been talking about? Go back to chapter 4, verse 12. Suffering. The fiery trial. Just the paragraph before that, the judgment is coming. I didn't really hammer that hard. I really didn't emphasize that particular concept that much. I kind of referred back to Brad's lesson in 1st and 2nd Thessalonians about, there's a judgment coming. You better be ready. So all of these things, everything really all the way back to chapter 1, verse 1, but he's thinking most specifically about that idea of suffering. Don't want to really horrible English expression that we use, beat a dead horse. I don't know why anybody would want to beat a dead horse, but don't want to beat a dead horse. But this idea of suffering just permeates the entire book. I have in my edition here, every time the word suffering or trial or testing or malign or revile is underlined in red. And I just glance and I see on every page, sometimes several times on a page, all this red underlining. These folks are going through a real time. Now, it may not have been physical. They may not have been drug out and, being whipped and that sort of thing, but we don't have to experience physical pain in order to experience emotional pain and spiritual pain. And so Peter begins this tiny little section, just 4 verses long, in his instructions to the elders, and he says, listen, guys, therefore, I'm going to talk to you because I can't be in every single one of these congregations all the time. You can. And in fact, you are. So therefore, as the congregational leaders, we're going to go into that in quite some detail here in just a few minutes. He writes and he puts himself in the same role as a fellow elder, which is kind of interesting. He's also an apostle. So he could say, as an apostle, I'm commanding you. But what does he say? He doesn't say that. He doesn't pull rank. How does this come across? As opposed to being commandeering and domineering, how does this little phrase, as a fellow elder, I exhort you? What's the difference?
I'm not above you, I'm with you.
I'm with you. I'm walking the same path as you. Okay? So, as a fellow elder and witness of the sufferings of Christ, he's not done, by the way, because next week we're going to finish up with the last paragraph, beginning with verse 5, going down through the end of the letter. He comes back to suffering. So, as a witness of the sufferings of Christ, as well as a partaker of the glory that is going to be revealed, shepherd the flock of God that is among you, exercising oversight. All right, when we hear the word elder, what immediately comes to our mind? Brad's laughing over here because he was one. What did you say, Missy? Oh, mature. Older? Yeah, mature? Okay.
Depends on the context.
One of the, when I went, part of my schooling, studying a particular movement that was rampant back around the turn of the century, this century, not the old century, and having several different leaders of this movement come in and speak to us, and they were just raving and they were so excited. One of the books that I read, the guy was trumpeting the fact that there was nobody over 40 in his congregation. And I thought, how pathetic. You've got no wisdom. You've got no experience. Now, a 40-year-old can be smart. And a 40-year-old can have some life experiences and have some measure of wisdom. I'm not discounting that. But the difference between a 40-year-old and a 60-year-old, and even a 60-year-old and an 80-year-old, is significant. And I really didn't know how much that mattered until the last few years of my life. I look back on the first 10, 15, 20 years of my ministry, and I just, please, Lord, use your eraser. Okay. Overlook those. I was trying really hard, but please be careful when you pull up the videotape and audio tape of some of the things I've said and done. Okay, so an elder is one who is older. The word here, I'm not there yet. Okay, so Susan, you said depends on the context. What were you talking about?
Well, when I'm reading in First Peter, when he says I exhort you elders, I'm thinking of somebody that the congregation has recognized as someone to be over the congregation. But then there's sections in Proverbs that talk about an elder, and I picture an older person.
Okay, in Proverbs, gray and silver hair, depending on your translation, is a crown of glory. I've earned this gray hair. Of course, mine is falling out. So my crown is a little thin, all right? But I have earned that. And this is something that culturally uh, is really damaging because we have eliminated, once you're a certain age, you're, you're just an old fogey. Your time was yesterday or last year or whatever, last decade. But no, we have to 20-year-old, 30-year-old, they have all the answers. Like, no, they don't even understand the questions. So, one sense, when we hear the word elder, we think of an entrenched position. A well, I want to be careful with my language here because I want to make a distinction here later on in a few moments. But, we think of someone that the congregation has installed or sometimes elected or selected. The words sometimes vary. It's fascinating. The first references in the New Testament to an elder come in the book of Acts. And not only that, but early in the book of Acts. Acts chapter 14 is Paul's first missionary journey, or the tail end of Paul's first missionary journey. They go throughout, I can't remember, up and down the coast of the Mediterranean Sea there, and they do a lot of evangelizing, and then they come back through those congregations. And when they come back through, they appoint elders in each congregation. And then in Acts chapter 20, as Paul is on his way to Jerusalem for the last time, he doesn't have time to go to Ephesus to meet and visit with the elders, but he calls the elders to come visit with him. And so he gives them some very specific instructions, kind of some chilling warnings. From among you, elders, wolves will appear to destroy the flock. So you guys be careful. Not from among your congregations, but from among you. Wolves will appear to destroy the flock. So we're not going to get into 1 Timothy 3 and Titus 1, but these are the passages that I grew up with every time it was time to add elders to the eldership. Harvey Porter would preach a long series of lessons from 1 Peter 3 and Titus 1. It's kind of funny. I don't remember 1 Peter 5 being mentioned that often. I can't believe they weren't. But in my mind, 1 Timothy 3, Titus 1, where Paul talks to Timothy and to Titus about men who should be selected, appointed as elders. He lists qualifications. I grew up hearing them being referred to as qualifications. I have grown to be a little bit wary of that term, even though it's not necessarily wrong or bad. How that word has come to be used is problematic, has some issues. I prefer, at this particular point in my life, I prefer the word quality. Because when I go back and I read 1 Timothy 3 and Titus 1, there's only one that a female cannot aspire to. You can't be the husband of one wife, ladies. I hate to disappoint you, break that news to you. But I think every one of those qualities of what an elder should be are things that we should all aspire to. It's not like an elder is, well, he's a Christian, but he's a super Christian, a perfect Christian. I think we should all aspire to to those characteristics. It's just that sometimes, in certain ways, there are men who exemplify those particular characteristics or qualities, and we recognize them as being congregational elders. Okay, so coming back to our text here, 1 Peter 5. What is it that Peter says? And this is where I really think we learn more about what an elder is supposed to be in 1 Peter 3 and Titus 1. So, 3 words are used here. And they are also used in Acts 20. Well, I don't think all 3 of them are used. No, they are. They are. I just looked that up. The first is the word presbyteros. Okay? That is the word for older person, the elder. All right? So throughout Greek writing, the word presbyteros is used simply for somebody who's older. You have gray hair, you have silver hair, or gentlemen, you don't have any hair. You have attained the realm of presbyteros. You are an older person. All right? Now, it came to have a more specific usage within the church. But the word simply means one who is older than somebody else, right? Or in the category of being older. We recognize those who are older than us. This is the word that we get presbyter, Presbyterian, right? Flows from that phrase. And so the Presbyterian church is one who is organized under a set of presbyters. Now, in most Presbyterian congregations that I'm even vaguely familiar with, that is a rotating. So you have a board of presbyters, and you're on this board, you're appointed to this board for X number of years, 2, 3, 5. And as one member is rotated off, another one is rotated on. Could be male, could be female, but this board of presbyters oversees the functioning of the congregation. Now, in a Presbyterian church, the pastor, and we're going to get into all this language here, the pastor is quasi responsible to his board of presbyters, but he's really, really responsible to his synod, S-Y-N-O-D. The presbytery overseeing the group of congregations of which that congregation has elected to be a part really tells him how the cow ate the cabbage. All right? Now, his board of presbyters in the congregation might oversee his daily work, but he's really responsible to the denominational leaders. Now, Peter goes on and says, shepherd the flock. This is the word poimen. The E there kind of has an A sound. This is the word we get our word pastor from. All right? So, you group of older men, you elders, shepherd, pastor the flock. Right? We're going to talk a lot about what the role of a pastor is. And then
That's an interesting choice of words, the shepherd. Years ago, I remember looking up, I was interested in the history and the nature of Australian shepherds, so I watched, and there's these videos of these dogs shepherding, or,
herding.
herding the sheep around. And it's amazing what they did, and it works when the sheep accept
Oh,
their direction. And the idea of don't do this under compulsion, don't do this because you have to. You look at these dogs, they understand that's what their purpose in life is
yeah.
all about. And that seems to be, like all analogies, they can fall apart. But the people who take on these roles as elders in the church, that needs to be, again, part of, they get up in the morning wagging their tails, just waiting to get out into the pasture to do this thing.
Yeah, I just saw something on.
And occasionally there'll be, and this is where chapter 5, verse 5 kind of fits in with this. Occasionally there's this young sheep out there that wants to challenge the shepherd or the dog.
Yeah. And yeah, that's kind of where I might need to put verse 5 in there.
When yeah, everybody is working in the relationship that is designed, it's magnificent to watch.
And to tweak that analogy just a little bit more, the sheepdogs, the shepherds, the Australian shepherds, look to the chief shepherd
Yes.
for direction.
Yes.
And he can, with just a slight whistle, tell them to go right, left, come to him, go away from him. He's got various whistles and various hand signals. And so that shepherd or that sheepdog is always looking at the shepherd. And so Peter says, the chief shepherd is above you.
Yeah.
Christ is above you.
The farmer's the chief shepherd there. He tells the dog where to take him to the next pasture that they need to go to. It's an interesting way to view that analogy that he's trying to
Yes.
use here. You can see the power and how it can work and the beauty of it.
Absolutely. The third word here that Peter uses, he says, shepherd the flock of God that is among you, exercising oversight. All right, this is the word episkopos. All right, from which we get the word episcopal. Now, so we've got the Presbyterian Church over here that are kind of set up in the polity of a presbytery. Well, we've got the Episcopal Church over here. And they have a different form of polity, which is virtually identical to the Roman Catholic Church, although they really don't have a pope who basically oversees the Episcopal Church. In America, it's known as the Episcopal Church. Over on the other side of the pond, it's known as the Church of England. Who oversees the Episcopal Church?
King or queen?
Nope. I mean, theoretically, yes, but Chuckles doesn't get to tell the church what to do. King Charles. I get in so much trouble. The Archbishop of Canterbury. The Archbishop of Canterbury is the kind of the titular head over the Church of England. In America, it would be the Episcopal Church. All right. Interesting word or rule, not rules, function of the episkopos is he is the guardian. And I found this word to be interesting because of Dennis's history. Did you realize, Dennis, when you were a superintendent, that you were an episkopos? You were a bishop. Oh, I'm sorry. Here's another word that you can write in here, is that sometimes the word bishop, when the Greek word episkopos shows up, the word bishop is used. So an episkopos is a guardian, a superintendent, a bishop. And so In the Episcopal Church, you will you will read about or hear references made to bishops. Also within the Roman Catholic Church, there are bishops and archbishops and thus and such. Okay, so 3 different words which really illustrate, when you put them all together, that the role of an elder is not so much a title or a position, although I have to be very careful there because there's not an English word for what I'm trying to say. It is more of a collection of functions. All right? He is one who is older. Why? Because an older man, particularly, and when we go back to 1 Peter 3, can I talk? 1 Timothy 3 and Titus 1, he's a family man. He's married to just one woman. He has children who are old enough to recognize his authority and to follow his authority. So that is the elder part, okay? But part of being an older man who has been placed in a leadership function over the congregation is that he shepherds. Now, Dennis has given us some really neat ideas, the sheepdog kind of image, picture of what a shepherd. But what does a human shepherd do? Why would Peter use the word shepherd? There's some huge biblical inferences here, but what is the shepherd's function?
To feed the sheep.
He feeds.
And of all people, Peter would know that because he was brought back into grace by asking that question 3 times.
Yeah.
And do you love me? And each time Christ said, feed my sheep.
Yes. John 21, there is such an amazing here, that conversation, John 21, beginning with verse 15. There are 2 different words used in that paragraph for feed. One is to, they're just synonyms for feed, but Jesus uses 2 different words, and he also uses 2 different words for sheep. And there are also 2 different words for no. There's all kinds of stuff going on in that paragraph. But Jesus tells Peter, feed my sheep, tend my little ones. That one of the words for sheep is actually a diminutive. Take care of my little ones. Feed my sheep. Just gives me goosebumps. So a shepherd feeds. What else does a shepherd do?
Protect the sheep from predators.
Protects. Absolutely. What else? Leads, guides. Takes them from one meadow to another meadow. Takes them down to the water so that they can drink. What else? Excellent. These are all wonderful.
Heals.
Yes. One of the critical roles of a shepherd is to look over his sheep and to see where a particular animal has gotten tangled up into the briars and perhaps cut itself or hurt a leg. And they would have salve with them, and they would cover those open wounds so that the flies would not get in or that the wound would become infected. So they were veterinarians for their flock. Anything else that a shepherd would do?
Well, didn't they sleep in front of didn't he make like a round pen?
Yeah.
And then sleep in front of the door?
He would create a little pen, and then to make sure that nobody wandered out, or of course, coyote or wolf or anything could go through the exterior, but he would be the gate. And so Jesus's beautiful teaching, I am the gate, I am the door. All right? You can't get out, you can't get in except through me. All right? So, pastors, shepherds feed, they protect, they guide, they heal. All right? So the third word then is episkopos. What does a guardian do? What does a superintendent? Now, Dennis, when you were superintendent, did you go to each and every class and tell the teacher what to do? No. Did you go to each and every single, now in your school district, this may not have been really a possibility, but does a superintendent go to each and every principal in the school and tell the principal what to do? The superintendent makes sure that the principal is hired to do the principal's job. The principal hires the teacher to make sure that the teacher does his or her job. The superintendent oversees, looks over, and guides and says, okay, school district, where do we want to be in 5 years? Where do we want to be in 10 years? How are we going to get there? What kind of tools do you need, principal? What kind of tools do you need, teacher? That's my job, is to make sure that you've got what you need to do what I have hired you to do. Isn't it awesome how these three terms, how these three words, when you put them all together and you mix them up, how there's not one single concept, but they all feed and they all support and they all work together. And you're going to try to tell me that the Holy Spirit didn't inspire this book? So he's using three words that are just common, everyday, vanilla words in the Greek language. But he takes these three words, presbyteros, poimen, and episkopos, and he says, this is how you're supposed to be. And we're out of time, but, well, we've got 3 or 4 minutes. But notice how he, as he works through, don't do it this way, but do it this way. Don't do it this way, but do it this way. And don't do it this way, but do it this way. All right? So, not under compulsion. Can an elder lead if he's got a gun to his head? This has to be a free choice. This has got to be something he longs to do. Dennis's beautiful illustration of a shepherd, a sheepdog. Like he said, they wake up in the morning. Where are we going today, Dad? Where's the sheep, Dad? I'm ready to go, Dad. He doesn't have to wake up and go, what's my job today? All right. So,
do I have to go do that?
Yeah, do I have to, Dad? Do I have to get my paws dirty, Dad? No. I'm going to stay here by the fire and warm my aching old bones. No, they literally have to be told, you retired, okay, pup. Let's let the little guys, let's let the younger sheepdogs take over. You stay here in the wagon with me. All right, you watch and you help these guys. Not for shameful gain. Interesting. Is there another word there for shameful? What verse is that?
Sordid.
Sordid. Okay.
Agreed.
Okay. Is it in the book of Hebrews that the author says elders who serve are worthy of double, what's the passage I'm thinking of? Worthy of double honor. Those who preach and teach worthy of double honor. That may be in Timothy or Titus, I can't remember. So he's not saying they cannot be paid, they cannot be supported, but it's not to be sordid, it's not to be shameful. All right? The shepherd doesn't kill and eat the healthiest animals. If he absolutely must, he's going to take an animal that is weak or whatever. The shepherd deserves his pay, right? But not shamefully or sordidly. Not domineering, all right? You've elected me to be elder, and so therefore, snap to jump, here. That's not the role of a presbyteros. That's not the role of a episkopos. That's not the role of a poimen. You don't domineer your flock. You what? You're an example. All right? If you're going to go, if I want you to go here, this is how I think you should do it. Or this, in my wisdom, in my experience, this is how I did it. You're basically an apprentice to the episkopos. Yes?
Again, looking back at the criteria in Timothy and Titus, it fits in with the leadership happens through example. So it has to be the person who can provide the example.
And who was the chief shepherd? Christ. And how did he teach his apprentices? By example. All right? And you will receive the unfading crown of glory. Now it's interesting, there are two words in Greek for what we refer to as, and is sometimes translated as, crowns. And I have to admit, I learned this in my study of the book of Revelation. There is the Stephanos. Anybody know somebody named Stephen? A Stephanos is a crown. So if you know somebody, especially someone who's named Stephen, who spells his name Stephen. Now some spell it with a V, but a Stephen is a crown. All right? The Stephanos was the temporary little crown that would be made of laurel or ivy or whatever that would be placed on the head of the winner of a race, right? An athletic competition would receive a Stephanos. It was temporary. After a few days, he wouldn't still be wearing it, all right, after a few days because the race is over and come on, go on with your life. There is another word that is used, and that is a diadem. Bring forth the royal diadem. All right? The diadem is a crown of royalty, a tiara. Okay? So, these elders are going to receive the unfading glory of a Stephanos. He's kind of mixing his images here because a Stephanos would be fading, but this is going to be an unfading Stephanos of glory, not to rule. He didn't use the word diadem. Elders are not royalty. But they will receive the unfading crown, the Stephanos of glory. Okay, any other final observations? Brad, as your experience as an elder, somewhat unwillingly at first, I think you have revealed. Any words of wisdom
just one thing you left out is being held to a higher standard. That has always concerned me and will.
And Paul mentions that in his address to the Ephesian elders is, folks, in your leadership, in your oversight, in your shepherding, the Lord is watching you. And that congregation is in your control.
And you have to give an account for that congregation.
That's where Hebrews, we are to submit to the leaders as those who have to give an account. All right, excellent, thank you. Anyone else have a thought or comment, observation? Okay, let's take a break. We've got some folks coming in to get ready for our worship service, so let's take a break and get ready for that.